The unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. So, this morning, I wanted to talk about taking refuge in the Sangha. And this topic came up in a conversation between myself and another monk on why some people sometimes have a hard time connecting with the Sangha, and learning to take refuge in the Sangha. So I collected some thoughts, and I'll offer them here this morning. I don't have any particular Sangha in mind. It's sort of like any Dharma talk, if the shoe fits, wear it. Or at least save it and put it on the back burner. Maybe someday it'll be of use to you. In Buddhism, we take refuge in three treasures, or three refuges, or the three jewels. And the first, of course, is the Buddha. The second is the Dharma. And the third is the Sangha. And the Sangha is the community of people who practice, specifically those who practice together. At the time of the Buddha, a Sangha was simply the name of a group that joined voluntarily together. It wasn't something that you were born into, or a caste or a clan. It was a voluntary group. It's sort of perhaps like in Western medieval history, craft guilds. Okay, and so the Buddha's group was called a Sangha. Now, over the course of time, that came to be used specifically for the Buddha's group, for the Buddha's followers, and whether the word Sangha continued to be used for other groups or not, I don't know. But historically, Sangha came to refer specifically to the Buddha's people who practiced with the Buddha. Now, in the beginning, the Sangha was Sangha with a capital S, okay? And that's because the Sangha meant all those who had entered the stream, all those who had become a stream entrant, the first stage of training. And that included both, lay people and monks. And then over the course of time, it shifted a bit. Perhaps as that first those early group of monks and laity died away, and things shifted. Things go on. That the Sangha came to be seen as it's the monastic Sangha who represents the Arahant Sangha. Okay, so the monastic Sangha was seen as representative. And then, of course, we go on, and then it develops into the fourfold Sangha, which includes both laity, lay men and lay women, and monastic men and monastic women. And that's what, how we view it still, particularly in the Zen tradition nowadays. The Sangha is all those who practice together, regardless of whether they're monks or laity. It's all the Sangha. On its largest scale, the Sangha is not just our Sangha, those of us who practice together, but also all beings. Sangha has different levels of meaning. Those of you who were part of the local book group, I think you read Living by Vow by Shohaku Okamura. Did you read that together? Okay. Well, anyway, it's a good place to look for the meaning of the three treasures. Where Master Jiyu talks about it in the Kyoju Kaiman commentary, and Shohaku Okamura talks about the three treasures in depth, and so it's simultaneously it's our own Sangha, it's the Arahant Sangha, which are the ancestors, and then it's the Sangha of all beings. It's what Thich Nhat Hanh would call the order of interbeing. Okay? Shohaku Okamura calls it the entire network of interdependent origination. Okay? It's the cosmic Buddha, essentially. That's what we use for the ultimate, for that which is, which includes everything. Okay. I think what's important about that is that when we think of taking refuge in the Sangha, we remember that initial meaning of it was the Arhats. It was the people who had a certain experience in practice. And likewise, nowadays, what we try to do is we try to take refuge in the training of the people. Okay? It's not about personality, it's not about charisma, it's not about who's politically correct. It's about the training. And the more we can focus on the training, the more we're going to get out of it. It's very similar to, I think as Ajahn Chah said, if you look at your master as an ordinary person, you'll get the understanding of an ordinary person. If you look at your master as a Buddha, you'll get the understanding of a Buddha. But it's the same way with the Sangha. If you look at the Sangha as just an ordinary group of folks, that's the understanding that you're going to get. But if you can raise your sights and really try to take refuge in the deepest place in viewing the Sangha as realized beings, okay? Maybe not perfect, okay? But take refuge in the training, then you'll get that understanding, okay? And no matter what happens, what's most important is what we do, not what somebody else does, okay? It's up to us, and that's what the little adage Ajahn Chah was emphasizing. It's what we do that's important. Okay, it's what we as individuals do. Okay, that's the understanding. That's where we can do something about our training. That's where we can do something about our practice. It said that the three treasures, sometimes it's called the triple gem, is like a tripod or a three-legged stool. And you need all three for it to be stable. If one leg is missing, it's going to topple over. Okay? And this is often used to explain why some people, they really like one of the refuges and they don't have any problem with it. But then there's one of the others that they usually find a challenge. Okay? We may really like to meditate, but we really don't like getting together with the Sangha. Or we may really like to study the Dharma. We may not like to meditate very much. Okay? But it seems as Americans, we seem to have a weakness in not taking refuge in the Sangha as much as might be good. Okay? That's for many people, that's the one they have a difficulty with. It may be because, as Americans, we're raised to be very individually oriented. Happiness of the self. Okay? Our society doesn't encourage us to think about, think beyond the self. Okay. We're trying to find that which is good for everyone, not which is good just for ourselves. I think the other thing that happens nowadays is just organized religion just is taking a beating, okay, and perhaps with good measure, and with good reason. If you look at the difficulties going on in the war, often religion plays a part in those. And what's important for us, the Sangha is part of the organized part of organized religion. And what's important for us is to make our Sangha, to make our religion, as good as it can be. I know myself, I reached a point in my life where I had to decide sort of, am I going to work outside the system or am I going to work inside the system? Okay. And I eventually decided that I wanted to work inside the system and make it as good as it can be. And most of you who have taken the precepts, at least, I think you share that commitment. We're trying to make this as good as it can be so that we stay true to the purpose of, quote, religion, and we stay true to the source, as sort of Master Ji put it. She's a hard act to follow, okay? But that's what we aspire to. She's the founder of, this monastery, founder of our order. She set the bar very high, and we need to continue to try to live up to that, to the best that we can. Few of us have the same charisma as that she did, but we can all train as well as she did. Okay? We all have that same potential. We just never know what a difference we're going to make in the lives of people around us. Okay? Now, one thing I learned when I came here, I came here in large part because I wanted to be with the Sangha. I was living, 2,000 miles away, and I wanted to be with other people who were practicing. And one of the things I learned was that, at least this is my experience, that you have to allow the Buddha to pull the cart. If you think of a horse and buggy, horse and cart, the Buddha's the horse. That's the meditation. The meditation is what pulls the wagon. Okay? If you just sit in the wagon, it's not going to go anywhere. Okay? You can think of the Dharma, that's the harness. That's what connects the horse and the wagon. And so you need all three. You need the meditation, you need the Dharma, the teaching, which is the harness, and you need the wagon, which is the Sangha. But without putting the Buddha, I'm going to say first, okay, not keeping meditation as the foundation, you're not going to get very far. Okay, there might be some momentum from sitting in the wagon with other people, but you've got to add your horse to the collection. You've got to have your meditation pulling just as hard as the other people around you are pulling. All right? At least that's my experience. You can't rely on the Sangha to pull you. Okay. One of the benefits of a Sangha is that, fortunately, we're not all. Often we're not all going through the same difficulty at the same time, and we can help each other. Okay. But we all have to do our part. And it's important when we talk about do our part. This is something that challenges us a lot here at the monasteries as we get older. So we say, doing our part, it isn't about fulfilling a certain expectation, and it's not about being productive. Okay. Again, I think many of us in our society, with the background of the Protestant worth ethic, we're very much kind of, what I do is who I am. And that's something we have to learn to relinquish. And it's true at any point in training, but I think in particular as we get older or we're ill, we learn that you can't base your identity on what you do, because what you do is diminishing. But there's something there, you can do the practice regardless of whether you're ill or sick, or whether you're old or young. Okay? The practice is where we pull our share. Okay? It's our practice, it's our own meditation practice that pulls the cart. Okay? That's where we want to do our part, keeping up the practice. And yes, we do what we can. Okay? But again, the meditation pulls the rest of it. Okay. Let's look at the the term taking refuge for a minute, kind of unpack that, as they say, and see what it means. It's finding a place of safety, a place of security, a place that, regardless of what else happens, that's where we can go. We use the term taking refuge a lot. Homage is the equivalent of that. So when we say homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha, we're saying I take refuge. It's just another way of saying it. The Pali or Sanskrit is namu. You may hear that in other languages, other kinds of Buddhism. It's actually a form of bowing. It's considered a verbal bow to pay homage. One of our monks likes to say that trust is an activity. Okay, now I'm going to equivalize trust in taking refuge. Okay, taking refuge is an activity. The earlier wording of that, of I take refuge, is I go for refuge to the Buddha. I go for refuge to the Dharma. Okay. When we take something, it's usually, we think of it just with our hands. But if we go somewhere, we're using our whole body. Okay. It underscores the importance of we're doing it as wholeheartedly as we can. Okay. With our whole self. Used to have these little bumper stickers that said, faith is a verb. Okay. Used to hand them out to people. I couldn't find them anymore, but it's the same idea as trust is an activity. You know, taking refuge. We're expressing our faith in the Buddha. We're expressing our faith in the Sangha. Faith in Buddhism comes out closer to confidence, okay, trust. Okay, we need a word, faithing. Okay, we don't have that in our language. Okay, but it's that taking deep refuge, you know, expressing that, following through with that. In Chinese, the way that comes across is I return and rely, which I like a lot. We return. We're returning to that which is our true heart. Okay, it's as in the Shurangama litany, that beautiful offertory, or throughout it, it says, I wish to return to my original nature. Okay, I return and I rely. I return and rely on the Dharma, on the Sangha. Sometimes people are disappointed in the Sangha, and I think that may be a reason why it's difficult to take refuge in the Sangha sometimes. We've had, bad experience with groups. We've had bad experience with organized religion. I think we have to, again, point ourselves back to what do we do, what it is that we're doing, okay? And recognize the humanity of all of us. The Sangha is probably the most vulnerable refuge because it's made up of people. And people aren't perfect. Okay? People make mistakes. People accidentally hurt each other. This just happens in life. This happens in any kind of relationship, whether it's a marriage or a business or any kind of partnership. People make mistakes. And I don't know that we can create a situation where no one will ever make a mistake, or no one will ever get hurt. We have to open ourselves up to a certain vulnerability when we take refuge in the Sangha, perhaps more than in the other two. It asks more of us in a certain way. It draws on, perhaps you could say it pings the koan a bit more than perhaps the others, at least for many of us. But that kind of risk, you find it in every relationship. Okay, it's like in a marriage. You can have wonderful marriage vows, but that's no guarantee of that it's going to work. It takes the effort of both people again and again and again and again. And the allowance for mistakes, for forgiveness. If we want trust, we have to give trust. Now, if we want love, we have to give love. Okay. Again, if we can point it back to ourselves and look at, well, what are we doing in this situation? Because that's where our karma is created. It's what we do as individuals. Okay. We create the karma. We respond to a situation in such a way that we create karma. Okay. And no one can, hopefully, no one should take that responsibility away from us. It's ultimately our responsibility, what we do. Reverend Master Jiu, when she was going through some of her tough times in Japan, in the wild white goose, one of the things she asked one of her seniors was, she was saying, who can I trust? Because, she was kind of getting it from all sides. And the senior says, trust anyway. Okay. That's a tall order, to trust anyway. Because again, it's important what we do. We determine our relationship with the ultimate, the unborn, whatever you want to call it. Okay. No one can determine that relationship for us. That's why trusting anyway is good advice. Trust anyway with our eyes open. Okay? It's not blind belief. Okay? Belief tends to be very black and white. Do you believe? Or do you not believe? Okay? But trust is something that we can grow. And if we don't feel we can trust completely, well, try to trust just a little. Okay? And allow it to grow. And we have to put effort into growing that. Okay? It's just not going to fall in our laps. We have to put effort into it and take advantage of the opportunities that arise for us, the opportunities that arise for being with the Sangha. Now sometimes, we're gathered here and have a Dharma talk. Now sometimes we do something more relaxing, like we have the picnic for the 4th of July. Okay? Taking refuge in the Sangha doesn't always mean that we're serious and always talking about deep matters. Okay? We can be with each other in a relaxed way. In some ways, some people find that harder than sitting listening to a Dharma talk with other people. Okay, we have to put some time and effort into cultivating the Sangha refuge. We have to make it a priority in our life. If we want the 3 treasures to be what lead our life, we have to make it a priority. Make the time to be with the Sangha. Make it something more than the default position where, I'll do that if nothing better comes along. Sometimes I think we get retreat reservations and we get cancellations where people don't tell us, and you get the feeling that sometimes that people are reserving a place in case nothing else comes up on that weekend that I'd rather do instead. Okay, we have to shift and make taking refuge in the Sangha, being with the Sangha, a priority. Okay, doesn't mean that's the only thing that we do, and it doesn't mean that there aren't times when other things need to be a priority. But we have to kind of keep that in, try to keep that in focus. Try to remember that. One of the things Reverend Master G used to quote to us is a Russian proverb, and it goes, "The church is near, but the roads are icy. The tavern is far. I will walk carefully." Okay? Our refuge needs to be more than something that's just convenient. Okay? It's going to require some effort. It's like any project in life. If something's important to us, we have to put the time into it and cultivate it and give it our best. I think it's also the case that just like seated meditation, when we don't want to do it, may be the time when we need to do it most. Okay? We look at, when we have choices to make, we really look at what we're doing. And are we really trying to do what's good? Or are we going with what do I really want? Or what do I really not want? Okay? So we study ourselves. We look at ourselves. We look at our intentions and our motivations. And when we really don't want to do something, that should be a little red flag going, hey, look at here. Let's think about this a moment. Are we just following impulse? Are we just following emotion? Or are we following what's truly good to do? As I said, we need to make the effort, but everyone needs to make the effort. Okay? It's very much like a spider web, with all the little connections. When one strand is weak, the whole web is weak. Now we can only really take care of our own little strand, but we're responsible for doing that. But it's important to remember that we're all doing this, and keep the sense of community. That we're all responsible for some part of the community. Okay, there's the sum is greater than the parts. The Buddha praised people who cultivated harmony in the Sangha. Okay, from the Pali Canon, one of the things he said was, one thing when arising in the world arises for the welfare of many, for the happiness of many, for the welfare and happiness of many beings, both human and divine. Which one thing? Concord, or harmony, in the Sangha. When the Sangha is in harmony, there are no arguments with one another, no abuse of one another, no ganging up on one another, no abandoning of one another. Then those with little confidence in the teaching become confident or trusting, while those already confident become even more so. And then he recites a verse. Blissful is harmony in the Sangha. One who assists in harmony, delighting in harmony, judicious, which means common sense or wise experience, isn't barred from safety from bondage. Having brought harmony to the Sangha, he or she rejoices for an eon in heaven. Otherwise, there's great merit in cultivating Sangha. There's great merit in trying to make it work. There's great merit in putting our all into it. Arguments are usually a sign that, that's a little red flag. Okay, let's look again. Kazan said, if it's an argument, it can't be about the real truth. Okay? We're trying to, when we're with Sangha, we're trying to reach and act from a deeper place than our opinions. Okay, a deeper place than our own views. Okay? We all have them. Okay, but when we're with Sangha, we're trying to find a deeper refuge. Okay, and it's a refuge that has been around for a long time. Okay, and it's a refuge that has an enormous amount of depth. One of the things that I think is a challenge in taking refuge in the Sangha and cultivating Sangha is trying to keep keeping the spiritual in focus. And there's a saying, turn against the stream to flow in wisdom. Okay? The stream is our karmic proclivities, which way our karma kind of wants to take us. But in training, we're turning against that. Okay? To train in wisdom. Okay? It's going to be uncomfortable. Okay? It's going to be not always be happy making. Okay? It's going to require giving up something from time to time. Okay? But that's the nature of the jewel. If we want the jewel, we have to pay the price. Okay? The Dharma, the Sangha is, as Reverend Master Ji said, it's the body of the Dharma. Okay? So we're trying to, when we're together, express the Dharma and how we relate to each other. Okay? Dharma is a huge field. We have the 6 paramitas, we have the 10 precepts, we have all sorts of helps. Okay? And when we're with the Sangha, that's a really wonderful opportunity to practice those things. Because hopefully, well, yeah, I'll say we will. We share our commitment to practice those things. When we get outside the Sangha, we may have relationships with people who don't have those commitments. And that's really hard. But the more we can practice those things when we're together, which is the precepts, the better we get at being. Okay? Taking refuge is a practice. Okay? I think one of the things that we have to be careful of with Sangha is to really try to avoid strong views about political issues. Okay? We live at a time where there's incredible polarity. It's so easy to, get on one soapbox and talk about what should be done or what shouldn't be happening. The Dharma transcends political views. Okay? There's a refuge that goes beyond which political party is in power. Okay? When I was the prior up at Eugene, I used to say, if the president himself, and it was someone that most people didn't support the president, okay, not unlike our present time probably, but I'll say, if the president came in the door, he would be welcome, and I would teach him meditation. Okay, no one is excluded because of their political views. Okay, that doesn't mean that you can't have political views. It doesn't mean that you don't need to act on those views on your own, but we try to keep the Sangha free of that kind of view-taking and view-standing. Okay? That doesn't mean that we can't talk about current issues. Okay? But when we talk about such things, we're looking for the truth. Okay? We're not just trying to convince other people to agree with us. Okay? We're trying to find, well, what's really true here? And what's true for us as individuals? We're not trying to come to a decision as a group as how we should view this. Any hot issue, there's going to be different views on it. And you'll probably, within any Sangha, you're going to have people who have differing views on things. We want the Sangha to be a place of safety, a place of refuge. And if we talk about these things, again, if we can kind of look at, well, what is looking for truth that we each as individuals can then take away and act on as we think best. Okay? So this is why in our order rules we don't take, political stands. Okay? It's to give each of you the freedom to do what you think is best. Okay? People's karma is different. What may be best for me to do may not be best for you to do. Okay? So if we're talking about, hot topics, current issues, can try to keep the focus on, what's the Buddha's teaching on this? Okay, how can I express this in my daily life, rather than trying to persuade other people to agree with you. Okay. I mentioned Shohaku Okamura earlier. He's a Soto Zen priest in Indiana. He's written a new book come out. It's called the Mountains and Rivers Sutra. Mountains and Rivers Sutra. It's one of the chapters of the Showa Genzo. And he's talking about the mountains, and he equates the mountains with the Sangha. Okay? And he quotes Dogen from that chapter saying, even a wheel-turning king, which is a universal monarch, does not wield authority or control over the mountains. And the way he puts it, he says, it is important in a spiritual community that the emperor, doesn't wield authority over the Dharma practice. The king here, the emperor, can mean our own worldly thinking. Okay? Spiritual practice should not be viewed with the calculations of human sentiments based on like, dislike, gain, or fame. We should not evaluate the virtues of mountains, the true reality of life. If we don't cling to our human sentiments, if we directly see mountains and water, which means to see things each in its reality as the network of interdependent origination, then we cannot possibly have doubts about mountains flowing or not flowing. Again, he's interpreting Dogen's mountains and rivers as the complete network of interdependent origination. Okay? And the more we can keep our focus on wanting to know those mountains and rivers for ourselves, the more we're going to help other people to realize those mountains and rivers themselves. Okay? There's a lot of ways that we can cultivate Sangha. We're given all these tools. I mentioned the 6 paramitas. We've got the 4 wisdoms, which are charity, benevolence, tenderness, empathy. These are sometimes called the 4 ways to cultivate relationships. Okay? They're the 4 gates to a mandala. Okay? It's the way people come into the mandala. They're attracted by kindness. They're attracted by generosity. They're attracted by benevolence. We also have the 3 kinds of mind that the Dogen teaches the chief cook to cultivate in the Tenzo Kyokun. A magnanimous or great mind, nurturing or parental mind, and joyful mind. And joyful mind is the mind of gratitude. And where those overlap is with generosity. And that's one of the greatest, if you will, kind of ways in. It's one of the greatest things that we can practice that will help harmony in the Sangha. It's one of the greatest ways to become a part of a Sangha, is to be generous. It's one of the really important ways to maintain a Sangha. Okay? Help it prosper, help it flourish. Generosity is the mind of making offerings. Those can be physical offerings. Just showing up is an offering. Okay, you may not think of it as that way, but when you just coming to a Sangha event is an offering. It's an offering of yourself. It's an offering of your presence. It's an offering of your time. It's an offering to other people. Okay, you never know who you may be helping just through your presence. Okay. I also find transferring merit, making an offering of merit to other people, to be a really good way for cultivating harmony in the Sangha. I sometimes will I'll start with the monks, and I'll go through the monks in our monastery, and then go through the monks in the order, and then I go through, all the lay people that support us, and I just go down one by one and offer merit. That you can, when you can't do anything else and you're lying in bed, you can do that. Okay. Well, one of the seniors told me once when I was quite ill here and couldn't do things, and she said, "Well, just make transferring merit to everyone else your practice." Okay, you can do that. We can always do that. It's almost like lubrication in our relationships with other people. Okay. I'll close with just saying that the Sangha is the living body of the Buddha. Okay, we actually can't ever not be a part of the body of the Buddha, but we can take refuge and be a conscious part of the body of the Buddha. We have choices all the time. We have a choice just to be here today. You have a choice to sit here listening to me. You have a choice whether you are listening or not. Okay? We're continually presented with choices. And there's free will. It's up to us, the choices that we make. So I encourage you to keep your tripod stable. Okay? Cultivate all three refuges. And hopefully something I've said today might help you in some way to cultivate refuge in the Sangha. Because I think that's the one that's the greatest challenge and that we have to really work on. So, thank you.